So, I was just scrolling through and I was looking, this different things, and I saw like a couple of different people talk about the DJ Academics and how he recently went on like the Fresh and Fit podcast. Well, I mean, he regularly goes on there, and he went on there, and there was this young lady. I guess she had a deeper than regular voice, and I kind of took that personal too, because I ain't gonna lie, my voice, I'm very skeptical about it. I'm not very much a fan of my voice, so it takes me a while, even just like recording, to get used to like listening to myself back, hearing myself back. And I know that even growing up, I used to always get that like on the phone, like, how you doing, sir? And even sometimes now, I ain't gonna lie, I get how you doing, sir, and things of that nature. So, there are women out there who have more, like a deeper tone voice, if you will, a baritone in their voice, and it's okay. But his reaction to this was just so intense on the podcast, where it was just like, okay, it wasn't even now this time it wasn't even like Fresh and Myron that made the podcast look bad. Like Act kind of just killed the whole thing. And so I just kind of want to talk about like Academics a little bit, because I try to give him the benefit of the doubt. You know what I mean? I definitely do, especially being like a little bit older and things of that nature. So I understand that, like, maybe I'm not his demographic. Like, maybe I'm not his audience. So I gotta respect that in a kind of way. He does say some stuff that I'm like, yo, bro, you wildin'. You know what I mean? And then other times I'm like, okay, I could get what you're saying. So sometimes I try to listen to like clips of his lives and things of that nature, so that way on certain topics, because then I'm like, all right, like, what I'm saying, I could see where you're coming from, and I don't want to take away from him that he is well versed, he's very knowledgeable about like the music industry and certain things and certain aspects. But I also do believe at the heart of hearts, he is just like a boy sitting at his computer talking on the internet, if that makes sense. And I believe that whatever reason, not to say that he doesn't have the reason to feel like, okay, he's bigger than thou, but at the same time, it's just like he feels like that gives him a right to address. He feels like he's the spokesperson, he's the voice of like, a certain audience. He's that, he's the head, he's the what you call it, like, on the brand, like the label, he is that representative for that community. And he feels like when he gets in those opportunities that he has to buck, and he has to make sure that he's like, nah, 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 his big act, as he calls himself, and he gets into that mode. And I don't want to knock anybody, because I do believe in like the freedom of speech and things of that nature. And that's saying like I don't necessarily have to agree with you. I do. So if I do disagree with you, I definitely do want to speak up about that and the reasons why I might disagree with you. And I just felt like he was so disrespectful to the young lady on the podcast, where even Mr. Rashid had to get up and walk away. Like, nah, this is not what we're doing as grown men. And I think you gotta understand that if you could do all that, you could be a big act, but you gotta know how to act like a grown man at the same time. Like being disrespectful, or disrespecting somebody else, or a young lady, doesn't make you more of a man. It doesn't make you seem more like masculine. It doesn't make you seem more of like holier than thou. Like how, what was the point of that? What was like, what did that make you feel good? And it was really because she calls him fat. If you really, that's where it kind of just took a turn. And I was reading some of the comments where it said that before Academics actually came on, the podcast was actually going in like a cool kind of flavor. It was going good. Where Shorty was actually pretty cool about the situation. You know what I mean? She's pretty cool. And like Myron and them had made little comments before, and it wasn't to drag her, and it wasn't to like make her feel like uncomfortable any kind of way or manner. And then it's just like he knows, like, and I know, I'm not saying that Academics is not right, because some of the things he says about like old school artists, I may not agree with, but he does talk about different topics, and I agree with certain things he might talk about with certain things. So that's why with him, I'm really just indifferent. I take him like one day at a time, if you will. But his behavior on that show, I definitely feels like he feels like, because money has, like, that you always knew, everybody knew that kid that wanted to be part of the popular crew, that kid that wanted to be in the it crew, the kid that wanted to be down with everybody, you know had probably maybe strict parents, or had to do certain things, or always had to go home and help out, or certain things like that, so they never really got to live that lifestyle. But once they got a little popularity, sometimes they become cops, they become people in position of powers, or whatever case may be. But once they get that title, that they be they get that standing in life, they feel like, oh, now you can't touch me, like, you know what I'm saying, I got the money, I got the power, like now I am, in their head, that's what makes them who they always wanted to be. And that's what I feel like the case is with Academics a lot. Like he he sometimes overcompensates, and that's where he shoots himself in the foot because it's just like, okay, I can rock with you, I get what you're saying, and it's just like, all right, you're doing too much. He was definitely just doing too much, and I will go in another episode about the whole alpha community and things of that nature. And again, and like Sneeko with Andrew Tate and even Kevin Samuels, I definitely want to go into that topic as well, but I'll save that for another time. I just want to talk about this right here because I saw the clip of Academics, and I know he's been in the news lately talking about like Regine and the old school artists, different things, and he's always like there's different arguments that he has, and like I said, there's certain times where I get what he's saying, and sometimes it is just comedies, entertainment. It's like this online persona. It's like this is what it is. He again giving the audience what they feel like, and I think. For anybody who chooses to produce content, anybody who chooses to make themselves online, like even for myself including, this is why this is like a very much scary journey. I don't feel like you should feed into what the audience persona of you is, if that makes sense. I want you I It should always be who you are. You know what I'm saying? You shouldn't be trying to live out this lifestyle, live out this dream, or live out this character, unless it's understood that this is a character. But don't become, or get so divested into that character that you lose exactly who you are, or what makes you strong, or what makes you valid, what makes you prominent in the community, or whatever it is that you're trying to build. And I think definitely Academic could have good points, but on that episode, it was just insane. It was just like, yo, bro, you just need to chill. Like, you going in, it was like, yo, you really butt her right now, bro. What's going on with you? Like, fall back. And it was like, it wasn't even that serious. Like, yeah, we get what you're trying to say, but not even that we get what you're trying to say. It's like, what are you trying to say? Because it was just like, he really was like offended by this girl having like a deep voice. And then another girl tried to chime in, and he went in on her about having, sexual relations with one of his partners and things like that. And that may be true. I ain't gonna knock it, but at the same time, well, I also want to say like, okay, I'll say there are thoughts, there are girls who exist out there who definitely are like making it bad for like just normal women who want to have a successful relationship. And this is even just like in friendships and not just only in romantic. So, okay, yeah, I get it, but some people don't like, if somebody's not giving you that energy, why are you giving that energy? And I just think it was definitely a bad look for him. And he just needs to make sure that even if the henny is talking, whatever's talking, you feel me? You got to make sure you check yourself, because in that environment, like, yeah, on Fresh and Fit, it's a more loose environment. You get to kind of be a little more blunt. You get to be a little more open. You get to be a little more like in your bag. Like, yeah, like these females, like, because they definitely bring a certain type of female as well. So, again, that's another topic. But I just feel like Academics definitely like not misrepresented. He didn't represent himself at all in the best light, and it kind of just made him look ignorant. If you want to be for real, it made it seem like he was the same emotional creature, the same emotional being that he was claiming that these women were. It made it seem like he had no control over himself, that he was very much hurt by the fact of being called fat, and that it definitely got to him, or just even anybody, any woman, any girl attempting to try to play him is just like, nah, you can't play me, you crazy. And I think money speaks for him rather than him speaking for himself. So that's where it's just like, bro, like, just because you have this money don't mean that you all that. You know what I mean? It's just like, they got to be more than you than just your bank account. Like, okay, you bought these cars, okay, and nobody's knocking. And let me make sure this is very clear. There is no hate. I applaud that young man at his age to have accomplished what he did. Everything that he has for himself, all the assets that he has been able to obtain, being able to take care of his family and support his mother. I applaud him wholeheartedly all around. Would never take any of that away from him. I am talking about his image, his representation to this public eye, what we are seeing, how he is showing himself. And maybe that doesn't really matter, because once you have your platform, I realize that you have your fans, or, supporters, rather, you will always have somebody in your corner. So then you might not feel as necessary to change certain ways or to be a different person, because you realize like, yo, this is what got me here. So why would I change that? But at the same time, like I always say, like I would hope that everyone wants to be the best version of themselves and not just the version that, exists today. If you can learn, if you can grow, if you can become better, why not? And in no way sitting there disrespecting or trying to insult or curse at or all of that, be vulgar towards a woman or anybody else makes you more of a man, makes you more masculine, makes you more, prominent in any kind of way. It doesn't give you more status. It doesn't, I don't see what that did for you. Are you trying to show off for your audience? Is this what your audience enjoys? And maybe that's what it is. And again, maybe I'm just not the demographic. Maybe this is just not for me. But I'm still going to speak on it because there's no way you should be treating anybody else like that. Because I'm sure the same way how you sit here and you criticize, or you review, or you go over and you want to check, or kind of like give your viewpoint on these other artists, people in the public eye, it's definitely going to have to be given to you too. And so it should be expected, especially when you make a performance like that and it wasn't even really the podcast itself. Because when I was hearing, or when I was reading through the comments, a lot of people were saying that the podcast had a nice flow, so it was cool. He came and turned it up on a different level, and then Sneeko just kind of wanted to, like, come in behind and be that little ad-lib in the background, co-signing everything, whether right or wrong. And then that's a problem in itself too. And so then we had this following culture, this expectation culture was just like, okay, I'm supposed to act this way. I'm supposed to respond this way because, we're on the same wavelength kind of situation. And it's like, no, we could think the same way. We could have the same beliefs. But if in this case you're wrong or you're doing too much, I need to be able to say you're doing too much. And that's okay. I think that's what people are afraid to be like, yo, like we make mistakes. We're allowed to make mistakes. We are human beings. But it's just how you learn from and grow from that mistake that really counts. And so I say all this to say that, I'm not saying Academics is a bad person. You know what I mean? I don't want it to be like, oh, he should be canceled. Cancel culture is a whole nother topic. I definitely will be discussing that as well in another episode. But it's just more so for him to recognize, like, yo, bro, that wasn't a good look. I don't know if you're trying to be cute. I don't know if you thought this was like, this was it, but this wasn't it. This was not it. And you need to do better. I mean, not that I don't want to come off like that, because who am I? You get what I'm saying? Because then I sound almost like him, like trying to preach to other people. But I'm definitely just giving my opinion, and I just feel like he just depicted himself in such an ignorant way on that podcast that it will you will he will always be retained or subjected to a certain audience, if that makes sense. Like, you know what I mean? Like, other people are not going to want to hear what he has to say because it's just like, yo, you be on some bullshit. And especially when they feel like you that kid that always trying to insert yourself into like the popular people situation, or like you the kid on the sidelines trying to be down, or and it gives that kind of vibe. Even, and I'm not saying that about him or there's anything wrong with that in itself, but just that mentality of it and just being able to overcome that and being confident in just who you are in yourself, and then that show through rather than having to give all this extra stuff to be seen. 2 feet. But sometimes we all have to be humble about certain things, and I think he still has to recognize, and especially when the henny hits or whatever you want to call it, when Big Act is in the picture, he has to understand that, you know what I'm saying? Like, watch how you talk to people, because nobody's invincible. Number one, nobody's above ridicule, number two. And just number three, it's not even necessary. So now you're just doing it for no reason. And we all make mistakes, granted, but I think I think over time, especially as his platform this continues to grow, he just always has to make sure he's checking in with himself to make sure that he's not stepping away. And then again, this might just be the true him, but he only hides it because he knows of the ridicule and backlash he would get if he really acted like this all the fucking time. So that's another conversation for another time. But maybe this just is him, and it's just a part of his package. So that's just who his audience, who he kind of gravitates to. That's who he brings in as his audience, and that's just what it is too. But as a person on the outside, he's definitely gonna get criticized for that. But nobody's gonna tolerate that. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants to be demeaned like that by anybody else, regardless of how much money you're making, especially when it wasn't coming off disrespectful. But I definitely want to talk about that clip because I know I want to have another conversation about like the alpha male community and things of that nature, especially with Kevin Samuels and Andrew Tate, Sneeko and all that good stuff. But I just want to kind of figure out how I'm going to frame that. I just want to touch on this briefly. I thank you for listening. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, share if you like. And yeah, definitely come back for another episode. Take care and enjoy the rest of your day.